Difficult to tell. I mean, most of the time, my sense is the annual meetings don't have a huge effect. They're an opportunity for people to get together and talk, share ideas, share perceptions, but not to, they don't change the world. So lots is going on behind the scenes at all times. The communiques have all been drafted, they're all the result of discussions that have already occurred. Now, of course, in a crisis, these meetings can be very important. So in October 2008, which I remember very well, the meetings in Washington were very, very important. They decided some very big things. But in general, I think meetings don't decide very big things. And I would expect these meetings not to decide anything very big. There's not much room to discuss major reform of the financial institutions, not least because the US has still not ratified the results of the last one, quota reform and so forth. There'll probably be some discussion of the implications of China's establishing the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and other such institutions, the BRICS Bank. I don't know how intense that will be, but my impression is that the discussion will be largely around these problems in the world economy, and they're not going to be able to do much to resolve them at this stage, because it's not bad enough. Yeah. They will note it, and it might have some influence. It's not clear. I still tend to feel there might well be shocks, but in the medium to long run, it makes more sense to put capital in emerging and developing countries than in the advanced countries, because we don't have much opportunity. We're growing very, very slowly. We're not going to grow fast. So it seems to me to make sense to imagine our capital flows continuing to well-run emerging countries. That's sort of my perception. There may be some shocks, there always are. The shocks could be big, but in the long run, I would expect that to happen. Managing that is very difficult. Small open economies find it very difficult to manage capital flows. It's a big issue, and I'm sort of concerned about the implications of that. Very concerned. I would suspect that, but we never know, that the likely monetary policy tightening of the Fed, which I think will be very small and very slow, is largely already in the markets. There's no surprise value. Now, I always say this with great nervousness, because it's amazing what can shock markets when it happens. But my view would tend to be it's in the markets. And therefore, when the tightening happens, it might be nothing. But of course, I can remember still, I think it was February '94, when they raised rates. It was well telegraphed. Everybody's Greenspan made it clear that was going to happen, and then it was still a shock. So I'm not sure, but I don't think that's the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is probably there's quite a few companies that shouldn't have borrowed, particularly commodity-based companies, mining companies. There will be some bad debts. There will be some restructuring. That's all right. That's life. For these countries, the most important thing, in my view, is that it is likely, nothing is certain, that the commodity price adjustment is structural, not cyclical. It'll last, and they have to adjust their policy making and their views of the future of their economies to this shift. And they can't treat it as cyclical, so they can't just use up their foreign currency reserves to sustain spending. That will be a mistake. They have to keep their buffer. That means they have to adjust fiscal policy, they have to adjust real absorption, real spending in the economy, and they have to shift resources to other sectors. It's sort of quite normal. These processes are also always difficult. But I am reasonably confident that pretty well all the emerging countries, with possibly one or two exceptions, are in vastly better shape than they were 35 years ago, and should be able to navigate this much more successfully than happened, particularly in Latin America in the 1980s.